This video is on high-impact strategies, focusing on the instructional strategy of summarizing and note-taking. Summarizing and note-taking are two skills that provide students with the tools that they need to identify and comprehend the most essential parts of what they're learning. In other words, this means that students must learn how to summarize and to note-take so that they can be successful through high school and through college and overall through life, because it helps them figure out what the most important parts of a text, of a lesson, or of a reading are, so that they can become successful in whatever they're doing. Summarizing. The key to summarizing is for the students to learn how to get rid of the unnecessary information and to keep the essential or the most important information. Once they are able to identify what is not important and delete it, and then point out what is key to learning, then they will be able to move on to the next step. In order to delete and to keep the right information, students must be able to analyze the information they are reading about. In other words, they must understand the breakdown of a text and be able to really focus in and break it apart so that they can find out what is important and what is not important. And this leads to, in order to analyze what is being read, students must understand the structure of how information is presented, which means before they can even begin to summarize, they must understand how information is structurally presented. So they must learn that first in order to be able to delete and to analyze, and then to, at the end, point out the most essential parts. Teaching summarizing in the classroom. This is very important that teachers teach it, because students don't come with this knowledge they don't just pick it up. They must be taught it. There's several different strategies that you can teach to help students learn how to summarize. The first one is a rule-based strategy. This is when it teaches students to follow a set of steps to create a summary. This would give them maybe a graphic organizer to help them say they're looking for this information, and those are the important aspects that help them to create a good summary. Also, you can do a summary frame. This is when the student is able to use questions to help pinpoint the most important parts. If they're reading about a text, the teacher might give them a set of questions they're looking for in the form of a study guide, where they can find the questions, and those are the key parts of the reading to help them learn how to summarize. Another idea is to use reciprocal teaching. This involves students getting into small groups. One student would be the leader of the group, and this student would help guide the whole group. Each student would be given a different role: a summarizer, questioner, classifier, and predictor. One student they would all read the article. The first student would summarize what the article is about. The next student can ask questions to help the students further create an understanding. The classifier can group things into different categories, and the predictor can predict what's happening next. It gives each child a role in the summarizing, but it also allows them to teach each other and work together. Note-taking. It is very important that notes are not taken verbatim. This is something that in a second grade classroom might not happen as much, but in a high school or college classroom, this might happen a lot more. And it's not a good way for students to take notes. The reason is that if students copy everything a teacher says word for word, then the student is focusing on writing down every word and is not really comprehending what is being taught in the lecture. So they're missing out on all that information because they're just writing it down word for word. Notes do not have to be short and sweet. That's something a lot of people think. Notes should be simple and short, and the less the better. But really, the more the better, as long as they're taking the most essential parts of the lesson. Notes should be continuous. This means that notes are not taken and then put away and never used again. Instead, they should use notes and then keep it going, a work in progress, so that students can constantly add to their notes. They might learn something and then say, oh, I'm going to add that down to my notes, because notes are used continuously. Notes should also be used for study guides. If a test is over the most important parts of a reading, of a lesson, of a unit, then taking notes is also going to be on the most important parts. So whatever is valuable and essential in a lesson should be taken in the notes. Therefore, students can use that to help them study for the test. Teaching note-taking in the classroom, just like summarizing, note-taking also must be taught. One form is teacher-prepared notes. This is when the teacher would give notes directly to the students so that they understand what the teacher thinks is the most important parts. Not only does this help the students prepare for a test or a quiz, but it also helps the students see what is important so that in the future the students are able to determine that information on their own. There's also different types of notes that a teacher can provide for the students. Information outlines where the student is given, basically the teacher notes where it's already laid out for them. Webs where students are classifying things into different groups, but also breaking down the most essential parts. Combination notes and closed notes. Closed notes would be where students fill in the blank. The teacher would write a sentence with important information, and then as she's lecturing, the students fill in the blanks. Or as they're watching a video, the students would fill in the blanks. Dun